Hey guys, Bolt here, and welcome to the summary and the kind of talk of Superman. I'm going to call it Superman Legacy because that would make it separate because it's driving on the legacy of the original films. And you can feel it. But anyways, so I can't play music to avoid copyright. If I post a picture, it feels corny. I don't own any merchandise, so we're kind of just driving very dry here. So I'm sorry if I don't fill in the space, but we're just here to kind of talk about it. So just to kind of like summarize the story, it's basically where I like the first minute of the film where it basically explains the universe. The universe exists, and it kind of feels already lived in. And the issue, I would say, is if you run into someone, you make a new friend, they have a whole life before you met them. And you can learn little bits and pieces as you're interacting and experiencing stuff with them, but you're not going to know the full story. That's what I feel like that this film is wrong with, is because this is a very popular character, and while you feel that passion behind you, but you don't get to explore this character to the fullest like you would like to. And I think I did mention, because this is a take two, I would explain kind of, before we get into this, I do have a list. This is kind of my, to keep me in formula, because in take one I kind of went off the script. And then on the back side is spoilers, so we will have a timestamp for every single section, and then when we start spoilers. But a thing I was going to try to get into is Nick, my friend, I mentioned him on stream. He is a huge Superman fan. He's got a whole, like, I'm over here with Dragon Ball, Five Nights at Freddy's, Yu-Gi-Oh, all this other stuff. But he mostly has Superman. He is a Superman collector. And I kind of understand it where it's just like, he is a cool character, but unlike Batman, where like there is a very big build up, you gotta do a lot of character building, there's a whole world to interact with, where Superman, it's been feeling like, yes, he is this he is a Mary Sue. He's got all these powers and all that. And in like Spider-Man films where New York is interacted with, it is a character on its own. The citizens interact with Spider-Man. It's a lived-in environment. Where Superman, it kind of like exists, so it's his background. It's Superman's background, and the citizens mostly exist for him to do an action. Just look how amazing he is to save a citizen from crashing to an airplane and all that other stuff. And yes, it looks cool to do, but the issue in the past has been you can't feel what this environment behind Superman is, and he's kind of like the Boy Scout, just, all right, I'm gonna do my thing, I'm a superhero, and it feels bland. It feels like any other Superman. It feels like the very like sentence that a superhero is what Superman is, and the only thing I'd say he's used for anymore is he is the, like, if you want to introduce a super villain, they bash Superman to just show how strong he is, because like everyone knows Superman is up there in strength, and that's why we have this all Superman and Goku talk. But then you have, Doomsday or Darkseid or any of these other characters just come in and, the strongest hero is put down just to be like, I'm now the big bad, fear me. And then like Superman half the time comes back to snap back, and it feels like, so why did he lose in the first place if he can just get slightly emotional and or have some little backup and he does amazing? It does suck, and it does feel like I don't want to really invest myself in this if it's just the same recipe where Batman is just like he has his ups, he has his downs. It feels very so. Both him and Spider Man, their lives are flip flop, while um, while it does. Sometimes some things do get exhausting to start hearing the same stories over and over again, but it's also kind of like it's exhausting because you know the story. You like if you like the character and you want to watch it and you have an issue with the same story getting used, it's because that is a story that you know by heart and you know you don't have a problem with that story, but you're tired of it. So that means you know the part of that character where Superman up and away can jump a building in a single bound. I know who he is. What does he do? All I know is he was sent from his planet to get sent down into a farm and exist, and he deals with aliens and stuff. He's just the big strong leader character. It doesn't feel like he has any personality versus Batman. And not to bash him, of course, but anyways, I think this Superman movie, Superman Legacy, I'm going to call it, has kind of changed my notes on that. Well, not on previous stuff. Like, Superman and Lois, actually, I think was the start of me starting to like and wanting Superman stuff. But this movie makes me want more of that character. Starting off with characters, let's talk about the Kents, the foster parents of Superman, and is normally kind of, if you want a good backstory, you have to do both pair of his parents correctly. We do have to kind of go into his parents. I forgot to note that. I cannot do his parents until the spoilers. I can be like, I basically do this when it comes to his biological parents. But his foster parents, it is something you have to do right because these are the people that make him the man he is today. So if you want an evil Superman, you give him into like Russia where like he's built on different morals and stuff. You know, it depends on what environment and what people you set him up with to make him what kind of Superman he has to be. And if you want this amazingly hot, like person on the high ground at all times, high morals, high sense of justice, you need his parents to match that. And I believe the Kents are strong in that. I can feel that the Kents are in that. I can see that they are like probably the greatest parents you're gonna have. They are the loving kind. They're the passionate kind. You know, the first time, you know, if he needs something, they're there to make sure he is fine. I feel the Kents are the Kents. But very similar to what I was saying is these are people that have lived an entire life, and you are just entering. And I think that I did like about this film, and in like the first few minutes, we see it in the trailer where he crashes down, calls for crypto. But before we see that, in the first few minutes of the film, it shows. I mean, it's a little bit of a spoiler, but you know, it's more of a timeline rather than an explanation thing. It's like 300 years, Metas showed up. 30 years, Superman crashed onto Earth. 3 years later, Superman shows up to becomes open about being Superman. Like showing off, he presents himself to the world. And I think it's like 3 months ago, him and Lois started dating. I think it was 3 days ago. I forgot what he did 3 days ago. I know 3 hours ago he started a fight, and 3 minutes ago he lost his first. He lost his first fight. I forgot the 3 days though. But it's just like so. Through dialogue, we have an existing universe explained in a very small fracture, where it's just like, yes, superpowers have existed, and it's kind of existed for a while now, and so people while they will fear people with powers, they're probably at the best getting fatigue over heroes like we are with our movies. Um, but it just kind of just like they exist, they're out there. Where like the 30, we get to have his age, with 30 years, having him be on his third year, very similar to Robert Pattinson's second year on Batman. This is his third year, Corn Sweats. Um, and I think that kind of sets up that it's just like they're supposed to try to meet each other, those two, this film and that film, where it's just like, so I'm supposed to be in an existing universe. I like it lives in the origin, but it also kind of works with the world that it's existing in. And I think that's what it does best, is just like, yes, I'm an existing hero. You still want to like we don't want to show that for the 50th time, but we still get to live in it. Like it revolves highly around the origin, and it's what pushes Superman. But I believe this is the this is mostly just be like, well, yes, it's what's pushing him at the moment, like very similar to the Patterson's Batman, where the death of his parents is why he's Batman. That's why he's doing what he's doing. Superman getting told his parents hit the message of be there for the people. He continues to be a hope-inspiring hero, and that kind of is why he puts himself higher and takes his stuff to an extreme. And I think that's what it does at best. But it's just like I'm saying, is just like it breathes the existence, but it does not action those existence very well, because it's just like, cool, I know you existed for a while. I kind of want to be filled in. But moving on to Guy Gardner, which is kind of why I went into that little bit of a tangent on the 333 and all that. The 333. Guy Gardner and the rest of the Justice Squad, you can know that. So Guy Gardner and Mr. T are the characters that they're supposed to be. Guy Gardner, bull haircut, jerk, all that stuff. It feels very them. It is. The character is very good. We do get to see a little bit of the Green Lantern aspect. And a lot of people, I think, would complain on him being a jerk. That is who he is. Complain about him using his ring to a certain degree. You kind of also got to say that's every other Green Lantern. When a Green Lantern gets a hold of something, it is based on the imagination of that person. And while Hal will be, he's a military guy. He was an air pilot for the military for most stories. So I think he was a test pilot. So he's got, him and Jon Stewart are having of that background. So guns, planes, all that stuff is on their stuff. Where Guy is a jerk. He's going to use his powers to make a hand that gives you the bird. All that stuff is what Guy is. And then there's Mr. T, Mr. Terrific. I'm just going to call him Mr. T. I pity the fool. But he is, you feel that smartness. He's also just like, he kind of avoids the emotions spectrum on top of just being like, I live in facts and figures and logic rather than in the emotions and stuff. And while he has to say it, it also like, yes, you have to be told, but he shows it in scenes too. But he does show that his brains are not the only thing he is good for in some scenes, But it's good to have a good, smart rule set up early on. And then I am so disappointed. I watched the Justice League Unlimited and Justice League Animated. It was just League Animated, then Justice League Unlimited. But I grew up with that series, and the main Justice League were Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Jon Stewart's Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter, Wally West Flash, and Hawkgirl. Hawkgirl, I felt was supposed to be, very similar to how Hawkman, I felt was Hawkman and Doctor Fate from Black Adam. Those were the two roles I was really hyped for. And out of the Justice Gang, I do like Mr. Terrific, and I would love to see Green Lantern characters pop up. But having Hawkgirl, who is known as a lot of people's Justice League member, it feels very like you robbed a lot of people of something that could have been amazing. And she's more of a background character. I'm going to say it, she feels like the girl of the group. She just exists, and like we do get a little bit of like animalistic hawk noises, but like she doesn't do anything but be there, be a background character. She really doesn't have many points versus like Guy is kind of just like, yep, I'm a hero, but I don't have to do anything unless I'm told to or get paid for it. Mr. T, I'm a genius, kind of gonna do what my genius brain wants me to do, not what people want me to do. And then there's just Hawkgirl, which is, I kind of just exist here. I just roll with it. And it's just like Hawkgirl in the animated series felt like she followed based on her morals a lot. Like, I feel like if we want to do anything based on the Justice Lords in this series, in this universe, she would be one of the people that would go for it. And it just kind of doesn't feel like she does a very big act in the very end of the movie to show that she is different from what Superman wants people to be, but yet it kind of just shows that she's just kind of a part of that group rather than on her own individuality. So I think Hawkgirl is the weakest. She's the Achilles heel of the Justice Squad, or the Justice Gang. But anyways, moving on to Lex Luthor. I wanted to hold him off a little bit, but I think it's good to jump into him now. Lex Luthor is Lex Luthor, but it feels like he's the main character on some points. And also I feel like he gets childish at some points, where in like most media I consume, he might scuff for a little bit, but he has something in place for something to fall back on, where like he is like he gets all his stuff he gets all his alleys going through the movie. He gets them all knocked out by like multiple different parties, but normally it's just like, don't worry, I'll be out again. I'll have another group. I have a background. It feels like everything was uprooted and he has nothing to fall back onto. The smartest man doesn't have a contingency plan, which I feel like even Mr. Terrific, who is normally known as the third smartest, he has that stuff. He knows that it's like, so if this doesn't work, we had to like retreat, do this. Like, say the world breaks apart, he'll have a way to get people away as best he can if it feels like if the normal plan A and plan B are failing. Where we're still waiting to see what the Batman of this universe is going to look like. And I feel, but he is the contingency plan guy. He knows, even though right now it looks like we're doing good, the 0.0001% chance that it goes bad, there's this, and this plan. So it's just like, so the first and third smartest person is so much more like backed up versus this guy who's supposed to be the second or competing for the first. It doesn't feel like he is very smart. You see that, but it doesn't feel like he is prepared for everything to go wrong. He, like, these are superheroes. They have superpowers. They're good with people, you know? So it just feels like if an army wanted to rise up and fight against him, like, hey, the second people that cared about Superman knew where he was and you're hurting him, they'll go and get him. It does not feel like he has any idea. I think he's just like, it's foolproof. It's foolproof. They can't lose. And then, like, the second it goes wrong, no, it's not supposed to. Why is it going like that? That is the only thing that I hate about this Lex Luthor, where it's just like, the second something goes wrong, he becomes a freaking crybaby. And that is not the character that Lex normally portrays. He is like a disgruntled person until he already knows the next plan he's going to do. That's what Lex Luthor normally is. And it takes a while to kill him down. You need to push him down hard, time and time and time again. This is something that Superman and Lois did so much better. Just like, yes, you throw him in jail, but the second he got out of jail, he was ready to jump on your life and ruin it. And he had backgrounds and stuff to put you in the wrong rather than him. It felt like the Luthor on a small time, well, not small time, but a side series that not a lot of people are going to look at versus a movie in theaters. They did him a lot better in terms of the mastermind part of Lex. But, yeah. Now moving on to our background characters. Moving on to Element Man and Baby Joey, which I think Element Man is not Mephisto. He's the guy who can make any element out of his body, and he's constantly in pain. You don't really get to see much media out of him unless you read the comics. There's a few things like Young Justice mentioned him for a few times. His power set did well, but I don't know of him as a character. The only thing we kind of see him as is the father to Baby Joey with powers. And like we do get like some interest of maybe bringing him back, but I don't know who this guy is. That is the only thing I have with those two characters. We kind of do get to see the mother in the thing, but I don't really know. These people I'm really interested in seeing, but it's just like, I hope we get more character in this. Moving on to Crypto. While he does look bad because he doesn't feel like he exists there because it's all CGI, but it does feel like what a dog should be. A lot of people were probably wanting The Rock to come in and start talking, just like, hey, Superman, we're gonna make the DC so much better. Yeah, no. I hate people who slob on that guy's bald head. I think Crypto should be treated as a dog, not this overly thinking sentient being, where it's just like, it's just a dog, dude, with powers. So it's gonna act out of like, its normal instincts. We do learn a thing later on that I'll mention in the spoilers, but it does explain his behavior and a little bit of him being unruly. But it's just, I think Crypto did good. He was a good boy. He did his job. Yes, he got some things in a little bit more of a mess, but it still was a fun time seeing Crypto. And not played by some overly egomaniac. Citizens and the city. Metropolis. This is something I was mentioning before. Metropolis versus other media feels like a character. We have him being beat on by that kaiju in the trailers, and while he is losing, citizens come to save him. It feels like they are grateful for his acts. They are showing his emotions, anything that comes out about him. We get to see their emotions. We get to see the people who are kind of like Spider-Man citizens, where there are people who are gonna like him. There's gonna be people on the gray, and there's people gonna hate him, and just like there's gonna be people who are scared, and there's gonna be people who are sheep that just follow the media. While we don't sit on it, it exists. So it feels so much better than just being in a city that sometimes gets saved with some citizens here and there. Metropolis feels like a character here. I'm going to skip Lois for right now. I'm going to jump to Jimmy and Daily Planet. I was going to explain Jimmy and Daily separately, but I'm not going to lie. So Daily Planet is very similar to what I think Metropolis normally is. It does show characters like Perry White. It does show the one guy who keeps messing with Clark a lot in the office, and he's kind of like the big shot, but he becomes a coward when things go awry. He feels like what is it, Fenton from Danny Phantom, the jock, the blonde jock who messes with Danny, but the second Danny Phantom comes around, ooh, that's what he feels like. But it's like, yes, the existence of them feels okay. It just feels like they are background. They don't feel like they are living things. They kind of just exist there for Lois and Superman and Clark to use, rather than be their own people. And then when it comes to Jimmy, just kind of he kind of goes around with a crowd, and he does not feel what I normally think Jimmy should be. Jimmy should be the best friend. I feel like he should be the first person that learns of Clark's identity. He should be the person that pays so close attention to his best friend that he notices very quickly, which I think by some passing words you're supposed to kind of understand that they have that existing relationship. But it feels like he is played by just like the existing role that comes in clutch on some things, and he is the big shot background character is what he is. And it doesn't feel like he is the person that would be a shoulder for both Superman and Clark and know about them being the same thing. And then let's just jump right into Lois. Okay, I'm going to say Lois, as a character, is who she is. She is a reporter. She is someone who is highly professional. She goes in there trying to be, of course, someone with her moral set. So she's willing to go out and at the risk of her own life, get that story. But I think what I really don't like that's making me mad about her is the thing why I don't like. So, like, Superman and Lois do it so well because we don't get to, like, get that whole build-up, but we kind of already jump the thing that I don't like, which is just, like, Lois in many stories either falls in love with Clark, which is what I think is the best way to do it, is by having her fall in love with Clark, which I think Superman and Lois do, but Superman is normally what things like the original films go for, where this amazing, like, big shot guy that's a Mary Sue, yes, let's fall in love with the untouchable. And then you push, the reporter aside, and the person you can, have a cup of coffee with. It doesn't feel like, I don't think we get to see that on which one of the sides she falls in love with. But the love life is very muddled in this. And it's either they are far enough in love, or it's her professionalism that kills the mood. That is the two things that I think Superman and Lois in this movie brings, It's just like they are a back burner thing where it's just like, yes, this is your canon ship. This is what everyone wants. This is the ship flag. But it feels like that is burning the second you put it up because it does not feel like these two characters care about one another. Yes, it is only 3 months thanks to the first few minutes explaining that to us, but it's been 30 years that Superman existed. It's been what? We don't know how long. I don't think we know how long he's been a reporter for the Daily Planet, but they've been there for years. So she knows Clark. They've been co-workers. They have an existing relationship before the date started. But I think she doesn't. I don't think she has existing relationship with him. I think it's kind of like it feels like we're running this ship on puppy love only, and once it gets in the way of her work, it kind of feels like someone who doesn't have time for that kind of thing. So it just feels very forced, I'd say. Where I feel like I would not want her to be the damsel in distress, which I don't think they did in this one. They mentioned getting her, becoming her point of interest, but I think for the most part she stays out of the damsel, which I do like. But she normally is the info person. She is the person that goes out and gives Superman info that he cannot collect because he is not the one. He's in the skies. She's on the ground. She's the one collecting info from sources. He's the one from up above seeing stuff on the ground. So he can oversee things, but he cannot hear things because he's not a part of the networks. And I think that kind of fails here. Because where, yet again, Superman and Lois is amazing because Lois does stuff in that show to give Superman the win. Or position him to do so. She is basically to complete his character, where this does not feel like it in this one. I think the Kents are the only thing that make that kind of role matter, where they are the ones to get him out of his funk, to get him back on his feet. Lois kind of just hovers. So, but all right, moving on to our two villains that aren't Lex Luthor, Ultraman and the Engineer. Ultraman, we should have saved him for a Crisis on Two Earths. I'd really have liked it be what everyone everyone is fascinated with the evil Superman role. And I would have really liked for Superman to have a full-on coexistence with another character that is evil him. And, have something for James Gunn to do like what is it called? When you're being meta. They should have been meta with it and being like, yes, you're basically me, but you had a very bad day and now you're a bully for the whole world. Is basically what I would really have liked it to be, where it's just like, get over yourself, dude. You came here for this purpose and you ruined it. Is what I feel like Superman would have been if he met a Ultraman from another world. But we kind of ruined it by adding this. Which, I think the Russian Superman, I think they did mention that they engineered a Superman for America by using a normal soldier and he became Ultraman. So I think it does feel that way, where it's just like, yes, Lex would make someone as strong as Superman or in the same league of him and call him Ultraman to be like the superior version to him. To kind of get out of the corniness that Superman's title would bring. And it feels very like, I'm not gonna lie, he feels very comic version of Black Noir from The Boys, because it's just like he's a silent figure that exists, that's super strong, gets the job done when the main man wants stuff done, and that is it. It does not feel like he is the opposing force for Superman. But we'll get into him more on the spoiler side. Getting into the Engineer, very fascinating character. Finally doing a villain that isn't superpowered. I think we've only seen Lex Luthor, we've seen Zod, we've seen evil Superman, the split personality Superman. I think we've seen Doomsday. I don't think we've seen anything that isn't equal power to Superman or higher, or a Lex Luthor story. So I don't think we've really sat on another meta-human that can just use their abilities, because everyone's just like, it would be unbelievable for Batman to actually beat Superman in a battle. So you need someone like the Engineer to actually think through using their power set to beat him. And I think the Engineer does that amazingly, having like a highly tech body to try to use their methods to actually try to beat Superman. And, Superman needs to actually think, not just with his fist, but with his brain, and actually try to actually show off him just not being this newbie. He's not a Homelander. Homelander, he just does everything brutal. He brute forces everything to make sure it gets done. Where Superman, he thinks with his head to make the quickest and safest things possible. And Engineer makes you feel that way. Where it's just like, yes, Superman actually has to be forced to do something else than punch, or laser beam, or ice breath, It is not just, his power set can't just fix it immediately. He's got to do something to make it, to accomplish being free of beating this character. And then right before we go into spoilers, let's talk about the big boy himself, Clark and Superman. So these two, very similar to the Batman of 2022, you should treat Bruce Wayne and Batman like different characters, because Batman is the true personality, while Bruce Wayne is kind of like the secret identity, or like the mask put on. And that is supposed to be so Clark is the farm boy, but he not worrying. It's very miraculous, where like when Batman and Superman put on their tights, they can show off without getting judged. They can be their true selves and act upon their morals and stuff a lot better. Very similar to what like Miraculous Cat Noir does, where, not bound by his actual citizenship relationships bound him to. But the issue, I think we're having the same issue with Clark as we're having with Bruce. I feel like they are a existing point to show that part of them exist, but we don't get to live in it. Because I think we only see it in the beginning of the movie, where we're kind of showing off that he does have that job at Daily Planet and all that. But else than that, we kind of just jump into Superman. Even at the Kents, it doesn't feel like he is Clark. Yes, that is the boy they raised, but it feels like he is still in Superman mode while he's sitting there. So we really don't get what a lot of like that geeky personality that Superman truly is, because it's like Superman is kind of like the hammer of justice. He goes and deals the blows and stuff, where Clark is his hobbies, his cares, his likes. We don't really get to see that. It's kind of just like he is a worker and that poses for Superman to exist. And then going into Superman, yes, I would say he is the Superman that a lot of people wanted, but I think as someone who's watched all the stuff, he does feel like he is trying to do a mixed bag of existing Supermen. And I think that can be a problem if you want a new identity as a Superman. Yes, you have to do the thing that a Superman, the two fists in front of him while he's flying, the spins, the laser beams, all like, his little moves. You got to make him do things that a lot of people are hyped for. But you don't got to say things, you don't got to act like things, you don't got to go to the same storyboards as the others. So it very feels like he is not his own Superman yet. I feel like if we get him in something else, like the new Supergirl movie we're getting, I think we could possibly see Superman finally get his own story. David, I think he needs his own, to make him his own Superman, where like, I'm very repetitive with this. Superman and Lois. Again, he was exploring a family life in his show where the Superman of the old days is how do I match my life and my hero life. And then there's like Smallville where he wants to just be Clark. He doesn't want that Superman persona. He doesn't want that on his conscience, which thanks to the Arrowverse, we get to see that he gets to give up that Superman and become Clark. He needs to be his own man. That is what I'm getting at this, is that I would like to see what, is it going to be a mixed bag? Can he actually make that balance? Can he just be wanting to be Clark and then every now and again be that final blow that people need? Or is he just going to be, for the most part, be a full-time job as Superman? But alright. I'm going to drink some water because my throat is dry. This is your spoiler warning. The timestamp will start, I'm going to say at 42:30. Alright. Spoilers engage. Let's just jump right into the guts. Superman Origins. This is your generic origins. Krypton is dying, gets into Earth, has powers, gets raised by the Kents, grows up to become a hero, and then becomes the big blue Boy Scout that is for all of Earth. Which I do like that he is truth, justice, and a better tomorrow rather than truth, justice, in the American way. You know, it is the man for all men. And I do like what a lot of people are quoting, where Henry Cavill is the Superman, where David feels like the Superman. He does have that existence in humanity better. But the issue that starts this film up and turns people against Superman, where things can't happen, is the fact that Lex Luthor is able to figure out this corrupted part of the message that was corrupted in the transportation from Krypton to Earth, is that they are, if you guys like Doctor Who, it's very Time Lord-esque, where like these lower beings are there for your, like, you are to basically use them as your underlings. You are to have as many wives as you can to reproduce Krypton's population again. Basically, I think that a lot of people do not like about that just because we kind of just ruined the House of L, this hopeful universe, and they're willing to stomp on the rights of another race so that theirs can kind of exist. But I think this is to kind of make way for Zod. If we want to have a Zod story, And we do have this new origin where the parents of Clark sent him there to kind of redo. Um, it would give Zod a better reasoning, where it's just like he isn't just some dictator trying to say this is the way or the highway and trying to just destroy a world. It's like, no, it's very, very Goku-esque. You were sent here to like make this world ours, and you have not done nothing. That is what I feel like Zod's purpose would be amazing to explore, where it's like you were here for this purpose, and um, that would be Superman fighting over his culture. And I think also in the Supergirl movie, I feel like this should be, if we're doing a She-Hulk where the Hulk came in to kind of give She-Hulk her way. And I feel like we should do that for this one, where kind of like in the Supergirl on the CW, we did have Superman pop up every now and again to be like, "Hey, cuz, how you doing?" I think we need to do that here, where I don't know how young we're gonna give Supergirl in her descent from Krypton, because some have her as a little kid, some have her as another baby, some also have her as a teenager. I would really like her to have that teenage route where she does have the culture of Krypton in her, where if she's told by Superman, or she already knew about why they were sent there, and well, yes, we'll get into it later about Supergirl, but having Superman come in and kind of be a conflict with his family that still has culture existing in how they live, I think would get a good relationship between the two, where Superman is fighting for her to come more humanity-wise. This is our new home. You might as well get used to it. Versus Supergirl, who's just like, we kind of need to have some kind of like, we are sent here for a goal. We kind of need to make that goal meet. I feel like we should see something like that from them. But moving on, I think that is a very bad thing to set up. But if it's to show Zod or Supergirl a reason, I think it's a good setup. But until we see something show up, I'm gonna hate that, because I feel like the House of L is supposed to be basically the doctor of the Time Lords, of just like, you are to be better and help other species. You're not there to be a higher being. You're there to help them up. But anyways, moving on to the Pocket Dimension, the Hall of Justice, and Bizarro. These are, I'm going to call them background ideas. I love them and I hate them. But here's the issue, and I agree with a lot of people. These are very big concepts that are just sped run past. Hall of Justice, it exists. It's owned by an existing character, Maxwell, I think it is. And then we have the Justice Gang in it, which means the Justice League can just walk in there and live in there when need be, but it has no reason to exist. Like, what was it before? Why did it get built in the first place? Bizarro. Actually, no, I'll leave that for later. Pocket Dimension. Oh yeah, we have this. Oh, I just realized, I don't even know. Did we even retrieve the people from the cages? I mean, I guess we kind of got to see Jimmy get his ex back, but there's the other ex of Lex in there. There's a whole, there's hundreds of living beings, like the monkeys and all that in there. So it's kind of just so it exists for us to sidestep what Superman is doing currently, so that we can hold Superman away, so we can kind of talk with the other characters for a little bit. Pocket Dimension is just so this is a whole new being, like it's there, and it can be used for other stuff, but it's just like we're in, we're out. Um, it's more of an introductory piece than an existing piece. Um, and then the biggest thing is Bizarro. So instead of it being another species or something that comes in to try to just destroy, we're going with the cloned Superman. Um, I don't think. I mean, if you're gonna do Bizarro come back as his like iconic self on top of mentioning what this pocket dimension, maybe the pocket dimension becomes Bizarro World, the Bizarro dimension. That would be so cool of an idea, where it took in enough stuff to make a new life on this other world where Bizarro can live as the highest being and show off what Superman could have been. But you killed off two big things for Superman in one go without so little. So Ultraman, like I said, it could have been another Homelander situation where you'd just be like, you could have been so great, but you came over here and took a piss in my legacy is what Superman could have done with him when he met him on Crisis on Two Earths. And then now instead of giving Lex another reason to come back and just be like, yeah, I cloned you, and I'm gonna use him now. No. It's like Plankton using Plan Z, actually doing it and screwing up early on. You gave out one of your biggest plans on top of all these other plans. You're kind of like, you're watching a bunch of stuff. You're not doing it. You're like, oh, I need to do this. This is this. I do it so quickly that I don't get to spend time and like live in it. So all these experiences are gone now. And if I try to do it again, it won't bring it. It'll be like, oh, we're doing this again, rather than, oh, we're hyped to see it and it does so well. I just think if we get them again, it's gonna be needing to show off Bizarro World and just do the Bizarro Justice League, just so we get a larger scale reveal than just having Bizarro back. Last thing. The outside, what would I call this chapter? I would call this kind of like the interference from the outside of this movie. So, Creature Commando and Peacemaker are existing pieces of this new universe, but I feel like those two have so much more character and time building because they are shows. So they get to like work with their characters better, but it feels like James Gunn is doing what he's doing with the Guardians of the Galaxy, where we're gonna piss on the big character. Like, oh, everyone knows Superman. I'm not going to give them too much development. You should already know. You should go do your research. Go do that. But I'm going to go build up these characters you have no interest in, but you have interest in when you're watching it. That is cool that you're making like C and D and E characters so much better. But you need to do my main A and B's well enough, because it feels like you're giving me scraps of stuff that you threw together. You basically took other people's work, chip-chopped it, put it together, here you go, and then I'm going to put all my effort onto this thing that you care about. It's kind of like, as an upcoming artist, I do have to mention this, you need to do what things are popular. yes, do your OCs and your original works in the background, because yes, you should show people what you're capable of and what your interests really are, but you should also give people what they want, because if you're doing stuff that grab people's interest, they will notice your other work. But here you are, is you're doing all rightish for the main meal, but the side meals are so much better. I might as well have ordered so many other appetizers, dude. It feels like I should have just had a cameo Superman role rather than a Superman movie, because you just spun that crank so fast when you're recording it. Um, it felt like I can live in the universe a lot better in those two shows than this one. And then also they're hyping up season 3 of Peacemaker on top of showing this movie, and I like John Cena, I like Peacemaker, but it feels like he's the Deadpool of this universe, and while I like him existing on his own and having little pieces of the universe in his stuff, I'm not going to run with him. I do not want him to become a main character. He is not Avengers material. He is not Spider-Man material. He is not for us talking about Peacemaker, he is not Justice League. He is not Teen Titans. He is not these big characters we want to see. But we're getting so much material on him. I feel like I should have had my Batman movie. I should have had my Wonder Woman movie. But now I'm getting this, and this, and this. I feel like you're going to burn out this universe before we get into any of the big stuff. That is what I'm feeling. Because we're already feeling fatigued from superhero movies. And you're burning the little bit of time that people are probably going to watch these things. And the issue is, he did say if this failed, we would just trash the entire universe. So it's just like, cool. So the structure feels very wrong. And then another thing that I will mention before my last little point, which is Supergirl, he is telling rather than showing a lot. There is so many little notes about this universe that is just over social media, over interviews, over this other things. I heard somewhere that Superman knows Batman, but we're not going to get him in here just because, he thinks he can do him himself. So what you're saying is, we probably have pieces and parts of the Justice League knowing about each other, but we're not going to come together for big threats and stuff. We're not going to have Batman show up and investigate what's happening in the background, or, hey, Clark, I knew you were fine. Don't worry, I have your back. No, it exists. And then there's a lot of fears that's coming up where it sounds like we are having another Batman v Superman issue, where it'll feel like it's gonna be the first film of Batman, but also the second film of Superman. A lot of people are still hoping we're gonna get Brave and the Bold before that, so we can kind of get an understanding of Batman first. But it really feels like we're gonna be getting a combo movie rather than a sequel, which I think that is something that DC has constantly been doing wrong. While their shows do go good, like The Flash, Arrow, Supergirl, they did so good on their own, and then when they came together, it felt so right. But then you have the movies where it's just like, we give you 1, 2, all right, let's just speed run the big stuff and throw away all this big material that if we had a 10-year-old Superman and finally got the death of Superman, it would have felt like you knew that character. You fell in love with that character. You knew that character from your childhood, and not to see him die, it would have been such a heartbreaker. I didn't give a crap when Henry Cavill Superman got killed by Doomsday, because it's like, Justice League's around the corner. I know you're not going to keep him dead for that. And not to mention, we didn't feel emotion with him. Man of Steel did not feel that big of a movie. It was a cool effects movie. It was a cool fighting movie, but it did not show. It did not have a breath of life in it. So I just feel like Gunn is trying to speedrun this universe, and he is getting the bigger points out of the way, so you can say you like that this universe has its stuff, but having all this outside stuff make the universe, like little bits of information, and these other shows that do, like, they might show up, like little things just to say, like, oh, here's your screen time for this one character that you really like. I really don't like that. I'd like to see Superman and Batman do their own thing, and then every now and again might interact with these characters. So, alright, but I do gotta finish this off with Supergirl notes. So at the very end, we learn that Krypto is her dog. We also learn that through another gun leak, that she did, I think it was floating on a piece of Krypton. So Superman probably was flying through the universe, found her, took her home, or she crash landed. It was weird. So it's just like, so she is trauma bound by actually having memories of Krypton and having it die, and then having her have this bar girl attitude and like young adult attitude, party girl. That's what it is, party girl attitude. I love that for her because it's just like, well, yes, we are getting. I'm hoping we're not going to get a Barbie movie, but it would be really nice to show her. It's a bad thing to be happy about, but to show a character in distress, showing through their actions, trying to get away from something that brings them traumatic and trauma. So, and then I really, really hope we're not going to get what my friend joked about, where only reason Lobo comes by is because they had a one-night stand and she ran off on him. That would have been hilarious. Just like, oh, I'm not here to hunt you for a thing. No, that girl over there left me hanging. Because Lobo feels like he would hit up a party girl. But I'm hoping this next movie, by the end of it, she starts, feeling more at home, starting to become what a lot of people seen in CW. Her being kind of a twisted moral version of Superman, where she does have her own ideas. She's not exactly like Superman. She does go more on emotion than him. I think Injustice 2 did that best, where, yes, she finally gets to see Superman. She starts gaining her powers, and then based on her pre-existing stuff with Krypton, she does stuff based on that. Like, oh, it's all about hope. So I'd really like to see her, yes, not be completely over it by the end of her movie, but I'd really like to see her start to feel like Earth is home, start to have her own set of. I'd really like to have her have difference of mentality and stuff from Superman. That way they feel like two separate characters, not just the female of Superman. And then one thing I'd really like to see is in Powerpuff Girls, they gave each girl a different power to say, all right, this one's good on this one's good on that. That is what I would really like to have Superman and Supergirl have. Because in most media I've seen, Supergirl, because of her genes and stuff, female Kryptonians seem to be stronger in a yellow sun than a male. And I'd really like to show, rather than just be stronger, let's just give her a separate new power. Uh, or like, make her function a little bit differently would be nice. But anyways, I would say else than it feeling very bloated, very fast, like speed ran, and it felt like I'm like just meeting someone who had a whole nother life before me. I think this did very good for a DC Superman and like an existing universe movie. I think it has the same issues that the Batman from 2022 did, where it's just like, yes, I really like this. I really am hyped for this. I really like what's doing. I'd really like to have a book or something. I need to look it up. I think I heard something on having a prequel book, but having a build up to who he is now would be good. Having an understanding of why Lois and Superman's relationship is the way it is would be good. Another thing I'd really like to see is what triggered Lex in the beginning. Because I know there's always those tinfoil hat people who just really don't like the idea of something out of the universe existing. But it just doesn't feel right. To have just Lex be pissed at Superman for no apparent reason. I mean, I guess he has the same motivation as the Lex Luthor from Batman v Superman, where it's just like, my wealth and the little things I do to build up my career and my accomplishments do nothing versus a superhero. I do think that is his like big motivation, but it does not feel all rightish. But anyways, that is my thoughts. It is mostly positive. It's just I really wish we have more material to build this universe, and particularly this city and its heroes and villains on. And then my other two big things are you set up a pocket universe. You set up Bizarro. You set up Ultraman. You set up that Superman had an alternate goal. I'd really like you to pay this off by having Zod come by, or have Supergirl have some difference of opinion, and you might have them clash. I'd really like to see Bizarro World because of the black hole during the big fight, and kind of just explain what happened to the pocket dimension and Bizarro. So yeah, I think that's what should happen. If anything, if you really wanted to do it right, I think since you ruined, you've burned up the Ultraman thing, is I don't know if we were mentioned anything about the people that were in that universe. I really would like you to use the people who existed in that universe to become the Bizarro Justice League. And not just be Bizarro this person, Bizarro that person. I would really like you to use the Crisis on Two Earths people. I'd really like to have Lex Luthor's ex just be Superwoman. Have the powers of Superman, but she is not no Amazonian or anything. That I think would be a good setup. I want you to use these things that right now are gray or just negative. I want you to use them in a proper manner so that these things that people would be hyped for if it came up in any other media, I'd really like you to do something with it. But anyways, so that's it for this. This is something I've been wanting to do, and because this is right off the first few weeks of the movie, I'd like to get it done now. Next week, I will be knocking out... Wednesday, we'll knock out Rebirth, because the bunker, I feel like we are already so close to being done on stream. So I think the bunker's going to be done here, so we need to get Amnesia Rebirth summary done, so Wednesday. And then I started on this little note of Secret of the Mimic. I'd really like to get a theory and summary out. And then I do have some theories I'd really like to put out there. I might make those into shorts though. I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna do it by shorts because I feel like I don't have the right editing skills for that yet. I don't have the green screen to throw a little pop up in behind me. But anyways, I hope you guys liked this video. Hit that thumbs up button, subscribe button. Go in the description. I do have all my other stuff down there. Patreon streaming. The Patreon is free. And then I do have a main YouTube channel known as Bolt that has gameplay. So, alright, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.